Welcome back, and this is still VOP this morning. Following the reported deaths of some football fans while watching the semi-final match between Nigeria and South Africa at the African Cup of Nations, the Nigerian Cardiac Society (NCS) raised concerns over cardiovascular health of Nigerians. The society highlighted the risk factors prevalent among Nigerians that could trigger sudden death. Now, according to NCS, the causes of sudden death include complications of hypertension, heart attack, stroke, heart failure, cardiomyopathies, valvular disorders, pulmonary thromboembolism, aortic aneurysms, status epilepticus, and inherited aortomogenic channelopathies. That's a tongue twister. Oh my God. Now I feel like a medical doctor. Okay, so the Nigerian businessman, Osoni, former lawmaker, Cairo Ojowo, and the Kwara State University Deputy Bursar, Ayuba Abdullahi, among others, who lost their lives while watching the intense semi-finals between Nigeria Super Eagles and Bafana of South Africa. And we have virtually Dr. Kayode Solomon to help us dissect this matter, because we know that a lot of people before the match made mention of the fact that if you know you have heart issues, if you know you cannot watch this match, please don't even watch it at all. So now we want to know the reason why these things actually happen at all.
Well, Dr. Kayode is he's the medical director, emergency rescue service, and he's also the founder of Docs Foundation. Well, good morning to you, Dr. Kayode. Has he joined us yet?
Good morning. Good morning.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Okay, good morning. Welcome to the show. So we saw a lot of about 5 Nigerians that died as a result of the match, the just concluded match. And then we want to know the reason why these things happen. And they are all men at a certain age of their lives. Can you please help us dissect this? Let's know the reason why these things happen.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me. Can you hear me very well?
Yes,
yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Great. All right, so it's a very important topic, talking about cardiovascular issues and cause of sudden death. You know, let me start by saying that I'm sure everybody slept last night, you know, and woke up this morning. Most people actually. So basically, every day, almost all your organs basically kind of like shut down, go to rest and sleep, like your brain. Every other organ basically just goes in slow pace. But the heart is that one organ that never sleeps. It's always working, even before you were born, from your mother's womb, you know, all the way to the last day. So the heart is a very special organ, and it has its do's and don'ts. It has its own peculiarity, and when nature is ignored, certain things begin to take place. So first thing I'll say is, generally speaking, genetics has a very strong role to play in cardiovascular issues, right? So some people are fortunate and they inherit good genes from both parents, and some people are not that lucky, right? So the first thing you ask yourself is anybody in your family, because most heart conditions are familial, that means that it runs in the family. If you have a parent who is on hypertensive or who has a cardiomyopathy, any heart condition, the heart is too large, the heart is not pumping well, the blood pressure is low, the blood pressure is high, or any history of, you know, clotting in the heart, whatever it is. If you have anyone, your family, parents, siblings, sometimes even extended family, and you will have such a very large catchment, because that's almost everybody, right? So, but if you have any of that in your family and you are fine, it means that even you have to be cautious and very careful about. Oh, sorry. Our NEPA has struck. 1 second, let me use.
Continue. We can continue the conversation like this. I know you do have, you know, quite a lot to say to us. But why we rectify, or why you rectify the light issue? You see what we're talking about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Power. Quite essential.
But then
power, quite essential. Well, Dr. K, when you do come back, I would like for you to, break this down even further. What is the relationship? We do know that most times they say when one is hypertensive, the tendency of having a cardiac arrest is a lot higher. All right. When one is hypertensive, the tendency of having a cardiac arrest is higher. Now, but the question I want to ask is it peculiar to those that have been diagnosed of being hypertensive, or is it possible? There are two sides to the question now. Is it possible for one who doesn't have a history of hypertension to suddenly develop a cardiac arrest?
Yes, yes, and yes. Okay. So hypertensives, it's a very broad question. So people that have hypertension basically means that their blood pressure is higher than normal, right? And normal is a range, and it's peculiar to age and sex. Now, if someone has high blood pressure, right, most times before they even have what you call the cardiac arrest, they will have had to, the pressure will have gone to a very dramatic level, whereby it's it's a medical emergency, and if it is uncontrolled, if it's not brought into order, then you now talk about the possibility of the heart failing, and then you have the arrest. Sometimes it can come up with a stroke, whereby you have that pressure brain. Now, about cardiac arrest, truth is, almost any condition can actually create cardiac arrest. In fact, most times, if you check death certificate, when they talk about the primary cause of death, most times the first thing they write is cardiac arrest. Before they know about the secondary cause, which is probably the condition that led to the cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest just simply means that the heart stops beating. That's it. So many things can make your heart stop beating. Yeah. If, for example, somebody has a gunshot injury, or person is in a fight, and then you stab the person, and the person bleeds profusely to the level where the blood level drops significantly, and there's not enough blood to pump around the body, the person will go to cardiac arrest, right? If somebody is playing with high tension pole and gets struck by by electricity, the electricity is going to go through the heart, and the heart is going to cease. You're going to have cardiac arrest. So cardiac arrest simply just talks about the heart being arrested. Yeah. So so irrespective of the cause, like I said, there are different things. Can be a secondary condition. It can be the heart itself that has a condition that leads to cardiac arrest. But one thing is certain: when you have a cardiac arrest, what we should actually advocate, is what can people do, the people who are around the person do, to salvage the situation? Because it's impossible to say we want to prevent people having cardiac arrest. That's the truth. Worldwide, cardiac arrest is, it's the primary source of termination of life. So, like the people that award the match, people will say they shouldn't award the match. How do you know? Nobody actually knows the day the heart is going to fail. So, but that's a different conversation. So the issue is people that have heart conditions, basically. Like I said, if you have parents who are using medications for whatever heart condition, you should be careful. The mistake many of us make is that when people are young or younger, they assume they have immunity, right? So they begin to make the same mistakes other people are making that will make them susceptible to heart conditions. Like, for example, in those days, smoking was one of the major trigger factors. So even now that you have a lot of people have stopped smoking, but you also have people who have adopted other vices that are different, but can also be triggers to cardiac conditions. Like many of us in this generation, like many of you, I'm sure you woke up early, you had to run out of home early. You probably grabbed a snack on the way. All these processed foods, fast foods, things like canned foods, foods that have high salt intake, preservatives, diet basically, plays a major role in why you have early onset hypertension and heart conditions. You know, things like stress. I remember way back in med school, we used to expect that people won't have heart conditions until they get to midlife in their 40s, 45, 50s. But I remember I saw a guy who was in his 30s, and he had really complicated hypertension. And then when we got to talk, I mean, he's a banker. Credit to bankers. They have a very interesting schedule, you know. Those figures have to match every day. There's pressure when they don't. He has to close his account. And this young guy, I said, I'm sorry to tell you, but why don't you take a leave? And he took a leave, and his blood pressure came down. So the question was, is he going to leave his job? If he leaves his good paying job, what's he going to do? Would that not create another problem? So in our current environment, stress is also one of the major triggers. If you look at the lifestyle of us people, they don't sleep enough, they don't rest enough. You know, there's even no time for, when they have lunch breaks, there's probably some work they have to do. When they close some work, they have to stress to get home, traffic, a whole lot. I mean, living in Nigeria, as you know, is a major stress condition.
What you just said about the things that we eat and the stress. We know our economy, we know the country how it is now, you know, and the way people are being subjected to economic hardship and all that due to some policies that the government are putting in place. Now, you know, you also made mention of what we eat to be part of these issues. But looking at the way it is in this country, where an average Nigerian cannot even afford, you know, some certain things to eat. I'm talking about things that we can actually use for our health to be okay. And what do you suggest we do? And I'm happy also you made a mention of your friend or someone you once attended to who actually is a banker. And you can't tell this person to quit the job or else hunger will set in, and before you know what is happening, another issue will start coming up. So what do you suggest Nigerians actually do at this time, since this cardiac arrest or this heart issues actually is becoming rampant?
Well, that's a very tough one. That's a public health concern. And the truth about it is that economics and health, they have is like a cycle, right? You know, they say health is wealth, but if you're hungry, your health might also be in poverty. So it's a tricky balance, right? And that's why you see some companies actually come up with policies like work from home. You know, COVID had its demerits, but COVID also brought some innovation. Some companies, I mean, it has been advocated for long, like companies on Fridays do things like TGIF, close by 2 o'clock, give more room for nursing mothers. In some countries, they even have nursing fathers. All these are things created to try and reduce the pressure and stress of work. You know, sometimes you have companies that say, hey, from home, because for most people that live in a city, the major pressure they have is that whole commuting to work and commuting back. So if there's a way they can do things from home, that actually does help, right? But and many HRs have developed all kinds of schemes where they have like people to talk to their staff about stress management, because it's a major stuff. So the thing about stress management, which is very important in this conversation, is that because if you don't work and you don't eat, that's another stress that would have impact on the health, right? So in what we advocate is if you cannot avoid your stress, then you have to manage it. One of the things we do is, so management of stress actually has a lot to do with personal development. Many people, for example, have these some people are unfortunate, they work with bad managers. So let's say you have a manager who is overbearing or who is very who is difficult to work with. You can't really do much about that. You have to just learn how to manage the person. But sometimes people's stress is self-induced. You know, you have a deadline to submit something in 4 weeks, but you don't do anything about it till 3 days to 4 weeks, and then now you're all stressed and all tensed. You know, so that comes to personal management. Sometimes it might not be your fault. You have a whole team. So basically, you have to learn how to work around the stressors, especially when you cannot avoid them, like work. Because if you don't work, that's a bigger problem on its own. But in respect to, so that comes also to diet. So if people make up their minds to say, hey, I want to eat healthy. I remember my late dad, one of his staff, when he was talking about when he was talking about my dad, he said one thing he noticed about the man was that if he doesn't come to work with food, but he does not eat fast food, so it's either he brings food from home or he will just wait till he goes back. He doesn't do fast food. And
so basically,
it sounds like that
the fast lifestyle, fast food in itself is reducing the lifespan of people, basically. All right, now we do know that there are things used to check your blood pressure. There's the blood pressure machine. Are there machines that one can use to jumpstart the heart at home, just in case a family member or someone around you gets an attack? Are there things that can be used within the home to, quickly jumpstart the heart in cases where you cannot, do the usual resuscitation if one doesn't know about that?
All right, very great question. So that comes to knowledge. So if anyone who has blood pressure issues or heart-related conditions should actually make sure that the people on them are trained. That you just have to register them for training, right? So that they'll know what to do in the event that anybody in the house might be the person who is the head of the home has a heart attack, right? Has a cardiac arrest. So yes, you have the AED, which is automated external defibrillator, but the AED is not going to be effective if you don't know how to do CPR, right? Okay. The work hand. So for all our, daddies and mommies and CEOs that are listening, make sure your staff are trained. Make sure you have the devices easily readily available. Have this device in your office. Have this device at home. I just imagine that if any of these people we're talking about probably had access to immediate intervention, the story might be different. And the reality is for cardiac arrest, once there's early intervention means in the first 2 to 5 minutes, the chances of being resuscitated or revived is much, much higher. So the earlier there's intervention, the better. So no matter how you want to call for help and call, if somebody in the house can do something, the chances of a positive outcome is a whole lot better. So yes, let's push that. Let's advocate for that. Especially in the offices. Many times people slum in the offices. It happens too often times. Because for many people, their pressure is actually at work, and so we actually also need to advocate for that in the offices. We have people who are trained to do CPR and who can use the automated external defibrillator. That's the AED. So yes, that machine is readily available, and with a little training, people can learn how to save lives.
Okay, doctor, please, I want you to help us out now in a layman's language. You're talking about the CPR, you're talking about the machine and all that. We are voice of the people who like getting very close to the root or to the people that we have. So we need you please to, in layman's language, explain or just, if possible, give us some tips on how to carry out this CPR we talked about. Because not everybody understands what CPR will be now. Maybe they will understand.
Okay. So CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Basically, if you look at your heart, you know where your heart is. I believe everybody knows where their heart is. The heart is somewhere. I wish I could see your laughter right now. The heart is somewhere in this region, right? So when we do CPR, what we're basically trying to do is we're trying to press the heart with our body weight between the heel of our hand and the backbone, okay? So we make the person to lie down on a flat surface that is hard enough. So that means you don't use a bed, you don't use a couch, on the bare floor or on a table, or you put a plank under a chair. And then when you do that, you put your hand right in the middle of the chest, which for men is the middle of the two nipples, and for women you have to use your chest hand. So you put the hand like that right there, and then you put your other hand on top like this, with this heel right there, and then you lean on the person with the whole body weight, and you press down like that, and you do that for like 30 of that, and then you have to learn how to give the rescue breath. But if you can't do rescue breath, we use to be called the kiss of life. Although we don't do mouth to mouth anymore, we have to use a barrier. If you don't know how to do the mouth to mouth, the rescue breath, you can just keep doing chest compressions. And if you have the AED, then you put the AED there. The AED, that's the machine we talked about. And the machine talks itself, it tells you what to do. And then, but before you start all that, make sure you call for help. Make sure you have an ambulance service you can reach out to, or a medical personnel you can reach out to. So while you are doing this, they are making arrangements to come and assist. Okay? That's the standard worldwide. You know, we can do if you can have more people trained. So I'm putting this. I'm a trainer. I'd like to train you guys in your studio. Just 10 people.
All right. Then. Well, we're having difficulty.
So maybe next time you'll be with your audience.
Unfortunately, there's a problem with the network. It keeps fluctuating. So we're having a little bit of a difficulty hearing you. But let me quickly drop this one before we start heading home, or before we start coasting home. In case of a cardiac arrest and one survives it, one is revived, what is the next step? What is the next thing to do? Is it just pack your bag and go home, thanking God, go for testimony, or are there other things, medical things, that one can do to prevent a recurrence? Is he still with us? Because I can't hear a thing.
It's basically left, technically left here and came back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. We can now.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
We can hear you. Go ahead, Dr. Kayode.
So I said that someone who survived a cardiac arrest is a very fortunate person. The next thing to do is to be taken to the hospital, so that there's something called post-cardiac arrest care, right? So that that person could benefit from that, and then there could be investigations that will be able to show what the primary cause of the arrest was, and then that will help to prevent a future arrest. Because the chances are that many times, if anyone has a cardiac arrest, there's a possibility that the person can have another arrest within a few hours if the necessary help is not rendered. So the plan is not to go home or to go share your testimony just yet. Person will need to have further review and probably more treatment.
All right. So before we wrap up, she mentioned earlier that Nigerians are suffering, and then there's barely enough money to buy something that would make you feel better health-wise. Can you just tell us things that you can reach out to, that you can easily buy, that you don't have to break your bank, to make sure that you eat healthy to avoid these health conditions?
All right, so things you can easily do. First thing is manage your stress properly. All right, many people, it's not even the diet that hurts them. It's the vices, it's the things they do to distress that makes their stress worse. For example, they go and start drinking, they start doing drugs, they do this whole other things, to manage stress, and in the process, they're actually damaging their bodies more. So yes, learn how to manage your stress properly. Yeah, things like exercises help. Things like being in a community where you have support, family, close friends you can talk to, open a journal, take a walk, go swimming, have fun time, relaxation time. That's very important. Okay. Then about food, try as much as possible to do homemade food. And if you eat out, try and eat out in a place where there is a consciousness of the content of what is served. Because most times food joints just want their food to be sweet. They put all kind of spices, they put all kind of things to make you come back, but those things could be harmful. I mean, go to some mama puts, you see the oil swimming on the that's a lot of problems in the near future. So yes, if you can't avoid the meat pies, if you must eat them once in a while, not every day. If you must take sodas, not every day.
All right then. All right then. Thank you very much, Dr. Kayode. Okay, I think he's still speaking. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kayode Solomon. Now, quickly, let's just get your thoughts on this one, because I saw a post that you put up yesterday. You basically described the IMF as a bad mechanic that would advise you wrongly so your car can go bad, so they could come in and charge you more. Talking about Nigeria's economy, let's get your thoughts really on on everything going on in Nigeria, the subsidy removal and subsidies in other aspects of the economy as well. Let's get your general thoughts. Can we do that in about a minute? A minute, please, because I understand that we still have John Akerele online. Okay, let's do that in about a minute.
Yes, but I'm not an economist, so let me just give that caveat.
You have your own view.
I do not believe IMF was designed to help. The history shows this, that the developed countries don't use IMF, do they? However, they prescribe IMF to us. And in my opinion, there are many good things about it, but most times the things they instigate, I'm just looking at, look, if you remove the fuel, which affects everybody, the notion that cheap fuel is only for the benefit of the rich does not add up, really. It affects every single person. There's nobody that cost of fuel does not affect, and automatically affects the whole economy. My suggestion, I've heard a lot of people postulate that, look, the reason why fuel subsidy was a real big problem was because of the corruption that was endemic in the subsidies. So if we can tighten our borders, prevent all those leakages, if we can do the right things at the port and make sure that only what is being imported is being paid for, and remove the corruption in the whole value chain, we should consider some form of subsidy. You might say you will not do 100%, but you cannot leave the economy the way it is. And now postulating you want to remove electricity subsidy. Look, we need to generate enough power. We might need to subsidize power, especially for the industrialists, because if we don't produce enough for ourselves and to export, our naira will always be challenged against the dollar.
All right then.
So the government has to choose for where they want to go. IMF, for me, many times is like a mechanic that is advising you and hoping that when your vehicle spoils, you will still come back to him to fix it for you at a higher cost.
I saw that one and I just couldn't stop laughing. Thank you very much, Dr. Kayode Solomon, who is an author. I didn't say that at the beginning. Yes, he wrote the book, The Sojourner. Very interesting book. Talked about the life and times of his father, and also a poet and the founder of Docs Foundation. Thank you very much for staying with us on the program. Haven't seen you in a long time, and I hope our lunch still stands. Well, I hope our lunch still stands. Well, anyway, let's now come to John. John, we honestly do apologize for keeping you on up until this time, but let's quickly get your view on this one. The heart condition of Nigerians. Let's get a quick one as we wrap up this part of the show. John Akerele.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Doctor for a detailed explanation. Moses, I keep saying to you, you see why data is needed. In Nigeria today, some people who are members of the working sector do not even know their medical records. An average student of a secondary school in Lagos do not know his or her medical records. And so that is why is it intentional that we keep data, so that from parents to generation, you can know that from your grandfather to your father, this is their health records, and this shows that this thing can be hereditary, can be transferred to you through blood. If we have all of that in check, then we can now start doing all that doctor is saying. Moses, if you go to other countries of the world, this PCR that he's talking about is something that they teach their secondary school students.
Yeah.
All right, as part of exercises. So what I think we should do in our own state is the teachers in public schools, because that's where you have majority of people, should be trained. Class captain of each class from GS1 to SS1 should be trained. As a matter of fact, we should have a mini health club where all of these things can be enshrined in a club activity related program, and it can be taught from primary school through secondary school. That is how you can build a health conscious system and society, Moses. And when we talk about a lot of these things, it's not politics. It's just that is what we should do as people who are in the same clan. And I believe Nigeria will be a same clan very soon. So I think that's what we should do so that we can build a healthy society through healthy attitude and healthy living. Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much, John Akirile. Thanks for your patience. We honestly always appreciate you. God bless you, John. All right, that's it on the show. We'll go into business very quickly. We'll just take a little breather. When we come back, we get into the world of business. Entertainment will follow, and then sports.
When your morning starts, make sure to look around for the right company to serve you everything you need to know about what's happening around you. That's